Did you know that in 2024, women's sports generated over $1 billion in revenue? In 2023, the FIFA Women's World Cup generated the most revenue in tournament history, making $570 million with over 1.9 million fans in attendance. In August of that same year, over 92,000 fans poured into Memorial Stadium for the University of Nebraska versus Omaha women's volleyball game. They broke the world record for attendance at a women's sporting event that day. In 2024, the WNBA set attendance records with the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark averaging 17,035 fans per game and had its most watched season ever on ESPN. The WNBA draft averaged 2.45 million viewers, the largest in league history. 4 years ago, the expansion fee for a National Women's Soccer League, or NWSL franchise, was $2 million. Just this month, the league announced the addition of its 16th franchise in Denver. That ownership group paid a record $110 million expansion fee. That's a 5,500% increase in valuation in just a 4-year period of time. NCAA female college student athletes have increased from 30,000 in 1972 when Title IX was passed to over 215,000 today. The growth, the momentum, the trajectory of women's sports is exciting, it's real, and it's palpable. Yet, from what you'll hear today, there's so much more work to be done. For those of you who I haven't yet had the opportunity to meet, my name is Shannon Soares, and I have the privilege of serving as the Director of Athletics here at Westminster. We are so thrilled that you're here with us today as we join other institutions and organizations across our country to celebrate National Girls and Women's in Sports Day. Today, we are really fortunate and privileged to have 6 high-profile women in sport joining us to share their stories, their inspiration, their perspective, and their insights with our community. Our moderator for today, Kate Lockerman, is a current senior at Westminster, and you might recognize her from WCAT's weekly news as she kills it as our sports anchor every week. Kate is also a student athlete on our cheer team, as well as our women's tennis team. And Kate, we can't thank you enough for all you do to lift up your fellow student athletes on a weekly basis. And we're so grateful that you're leading this discussion today. I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, Coach Soares. We have some amazing panelists here, and I can't wait to hear all about your careers in sports, so we're going to get right into it. So Ms. Therese Griffin serves as a Senior Deputy Director of Athletics at the University of Georgia, playing a pivotal role in shaping the school's athletic programs. In her time at UGA, she's overseen key internal operations, including human resources and strategic development. In addition to serving as a Deputy Title IX Coordinator, she facilitates multiple sports programs and represents UGA in various SEC and institutional leadership groups. So, Ms. Therese Griffin, you play a crucial role as the Deputy Title IX Coordinator. Can you describe your responsibilities in this position and how Title IX continues to affect the landscape of collegiate athletics?
Turn it on. There we go, and it will work. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction and your leadership on this campus. Let's just start with a debt of gratitude to everyone in this room, the leaders in this room who were really intentional about holding space to celebrate girls and women in sports. Says a lot about the values of this institution. So thank you, and thank you for including us in this celebration this week. We talk about the scope of my responsibilities at the University of Georgia and my role. I say that it's a privilege to serve what we believe is a powerhouse in athletics and academics at the University of Georgia. And I take my role on every day, just making sure that we have the right people in positions of employment to serve our student athletes and our coaches. So that's kind of my focus on a day-to-day basis, is just hiring the right people, retaining the right people, and challenging them to perform at a high level and serving our student athletes and our coaches. When we talk about the collegiate athletics landscape in Title IX, which we're fighting dearly for, given the fact that I wouldn't be sitting here today if it were not for Title IX. But it's just making sure that we keep our female student athletes and the experience that they have at the University of Georgia top of mind. Obviously, you have laws and regulations guiding the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis. What we like to say oftentimes is that policies don't protect people and opportunities, people do. So the decisions that we make every day, the people that we bring into our organization, our institutional leadership, the choices that we make every day are what undergird Title IX and making sure that we preserve the integrity of the female student-athlete experience at the University of Georgia. I think I answered your question. It was
Yes. And which initiatives have you found to be most beneficial in fostering gender equity and diversity in UGA's athletic programs?
You know, so when we talk about this week and celebrating National Girl and Women in Sports Day, I think the highlight of what we do on an annual basis is put on a More Than My Sport program for our female student athletes. We had, and I'm not kidding you, I feel like we were in that space for about 4 hours last night, quite similar to what you all are doing here. We bring in high-powered female leaders across different industries to network with our female student athletes for about 45 minutes, and then we sit down and we talk shop with them. So we, host a panel quite similar to this. Then we open the floor up to our student athletes, and I'll tell you, from an engagement standpoint, our student athletes asked questions for about an hour last night. And so that's one of the many things that we do to make sure that our student athletes, our female student athletes, understand the value that they bring to our organization and how we are not the University of Georgia. We are not just the University of Georgia because of how amazing Saturdays in Athens are with our football program, but we are the University of Georgia committed to Title IX because of our rich history, tradition, and investment in women's sports. We talk about the pioneers in our department, the women who started our golf program. We were joking at lunch about Suzanne Jocklin-Lieburn, who, we talk about what she did for the sport of collegiate gymnastics. It's unmatched. And so when you talk about the University of Georgia, yes, there are some premier programs that are top of mind, but I believe that we are who we are because of how we've invested in women's sports programs for a really long time at the University of Georgia.
Well, that's awesome. So Miss Allie Tennyson joined GPS this past summer as their new athletic director. She brings a strong background in athletics as she was a standout on the nationally ranked Penn State women's soccer team. Her master's in educational leadership and bachelor's in advertising and public relations have shaped her leadership in sports and education. So this question is for you, Allie, but also Doris. What has your experience been like as both of you are women serving as athletic directors for your school?
Thank you, and I just want to also echo gratitude for Westminster putting on an event like this to celebrate and promote females in athletics. It, again, says a lot about the values of this institution. I just took the role at GPS about 7 months ago. My husband and I moved from Dallas, Texas, and are brand new Tennesseans, and I spent the 5 years before that as a director of athletics at a co-ed Catholic school in Dallas, Texas. And if I look at the two different campuses that I had the privilege to serve on, they're vastly different. There was 1,000 students at the school I worked at in Dallas, co-ed in the middle of Dallas, Texas, where similar to Atlanta, sports are king, pressure is high. And then sweet little Chattanooga, Tennessee's all-girls school that sits on the bank of the Tennessee River. The priorities of both of those institutions are the same. And it was to celebrate and promote the instrumental tool that athletics is in the formation of youth in our country. And I didn't know that when I took the job in Dallas about 7 years ago, and I learned it all 5 years. And so I do this job because I love it, but more importantly, I do it because of what athletics was given to me in high school, but most importantly in college. So I do just want to correct one thing that was said. I played soccer for 4 years at Penn State University. We were nationally ranked. We won 4 Big Ten championships. We went to a Final Four. I probably played in 6 games. And I say that because I wouldn't be sitting here today or had the professional success that I had if I didn't learn how to be a valuable member of my team in that role. So I was a standout member of the team, but I wasn't on the field. And that value, that lessons that athletics afforded me at Penn State is why I am so deeply passionate in investing back into the youth of our country and in this role. So.
And then how do you navigate the responsibilities of overseeing athletic programs? That's obviously a big role. So what are your ways to manage your time?
That's good. Good question. I'm a big calendar person, and I probably look at my calendar multiple times a day. But I think more than anything else, it's just really just always a balance between the heart and the mind and what the priorities are. There's athletics in some right, there's a lot of emotion that goes into it, and so I tend to default to leading with my heart when it comes to priorities, and I've found success that way so far. So.
Awesome, I love a calendar. I'm so type A. As someone who has successfully built many relationships with community partners, what are the best ways to develop strong professional networks and collaborative skills in the sports industry? For you, Allie, sorry.
Oh, gosh. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for relationships. My two coaches in college are some of my best friends today. And then I graduated from college in 2009, and I will say from 2009 to 2025, they also are all of the Penn State women's soccer alums' best friends as well. They taught me how to invest in people, and people are get you where you are today. I had the privilege of getting introduced to Shannon Soares 2 summers ago, and my relationship with her has afforded me many opportunities. It's afforded me to develop as a female leader in athletics, and it's also afforded me to meet many other successful female leaders in athletics, and so I'm grateful for her for that, but also just reminding me how important it is to continually invest in people.
Next, we have Miss Fielding Kidd Jameson to your left, a Westminster alum, who played lacrosse at Yale before launching a career in the sports industry. She started in strategic development at NBC Universal and Comcast before serving as managing director at Trailblazer Venture Studio. Most recently, she founded Tipped Ventures, a company dedicated to investing in groundbreaking startups, disruptive technologies, and creative entrepreneurs who are advancing in the sports industry for women. And we talked about this a little bit at lunch, but how did you get involved in the sports industry after playing lacrosse at Yale? And how do you use your motto, never settle, as a woman in a male-dominated field?
Thank you, and just to echo everyone, thank you so much for being here, for having me here. I also just want to do a quick shout out to all of the boys and men in the room. It's awesome, and let me just tell you, you can clap for yourself, totally, absolutely, 100%. I would not be here, most of us would not be here today playing sports if it wasn't for amazing male coaches, dads, brothers, friends, dragging us to games or being there. It's hugely important. My father is here today, still supporting me years later, so it is incredible, and just super appreciative you guys are here. In terms of how did I find my way back to sports, it was not, I think, a lot of times when you're an athlete, you tend to gravitate towards sports, or you maybe want to work in sports. It's exciting, it's cool, but that was not necessarily my career right away, and I just want to say that sometimes when you have a dream or you want to be in something, it might not happen right away, and that's okay, and it could take years and it could take decades, and for me, it did. It took almost a decade to really come back into the sports world. Everything that I did, I just started to try to incorporate sports in every type of role possible, or just kind of start to insert myself into conversations around sports. My role started in emerging technology, and now I'm leading an investment firm that is investing in products and technologies that are focused on building the best athlete, fan, and general consumer experience in sports, and specifically for women. And so every role I've had, I've tried to kind of develop the right skill sets and make sports be a part of that. And you mentioned a slogan around never settle, which is really bringing me back to lacrosse days when we had to cheer that after every practice. Look, I think that never settle is an incredible tool that has served me quite well and serves athletes quite well, frankly, right? Because it is easy to get comfortable and complacent, especially if you're amazing at your sport, right? Maybe that comes naturally to you. Same thing in the classroom, right? Maybe something comes really naturally to you, so you don't necessarily put in the work. And that will come back in the end. And so I think to constantly remind yourself that when you're feeling comfortable, that might be a time to think about what's next for me, where do I go, how do I grow, how do I learn, We are ever evolving human beings. Our capacity to learn is non-existent. There is no capacity. And so I just encourage everybody here, in whatever role that you're in, to keep an open mind to that and make sure that in every aspect of your life, whether it's on the field or in the classroom or in your friend or in your community, that you're pushing yourself to continue to explore and have that general curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I'll definitely be taking that with me as I go to college, too. So Ms. Jenna McLaughlin to my left, a respected leader in the sports industry, has joined Priority Sports and Entertainment to oversee its coaches, broadcasters, and front office division while leading the agency's newly launched women's sports division. McLaughlin recently led the collegiate sports sector at Korn Ferry and held roles at NC State and Army West Point, where she coached women's basketball. At Priority Sports, she's focused on driving greater representation and creating new opportunities for women in sports, working with top executives, coaches, and athletes to enhance career growth and visibility. So as a former collegiate coach and now a sports agent, what are the biggest challenges women face in advancing in the sports industry, and how can organizations address these barriers?
Whoever wrote that bio did a really good job. I need to borrow it. Great job. Thank you. I was just telling them recently, I don't even know how to put my history of work into a paragraph, so really well done, and I promise I'm going to borrow that. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for everyone to be here. Yeah, like Fielding said, especially the guys and young men and a little older men. It's great to see you here, and I'm excited to talk about this. Barriers for women in the sports world. There's not just one barrier, I think, in general, but I think what I can say is it's really important that we have representation in the searches themselves. So I'm speaking because of what I did prior to being an agent was I was a search executive. So oftentimes I placed coaches in college and coaches in the pro space. I actually did the Atlanta Dream women's basketball search that placed Carl Smesko. So let's use that as an example. There was a lot of pushback that a male got another WNBA job. There were 12 WNBA teams last year. 7 turned over their coaches, and more than half went to men, including the search that I ran. And he's a very, very talented man. I think 85% winning percentage. What are the barriers? Where in that case, we need pipelines of women that have a high talent, right? And I'm sure everyone who has hired really talented folks is, sometimes it's the barrier is getting into the room. Do you have the experience to get into the room? Do you have the network to get into the room? And those can be barriers. And same thing if you're trying to get a college scholarship or get into a position to be, again, in a place where you have the opportunity. Sometimes I think that's what the barrier is how do I get the opportunity to get in the room? How do I put myself in a position? How do I have the body of work to do that? Right? And I think when you think about how do you put that, you have to do the work way before the opportunity presents itself. So whether it's a really good job, whether it's a space on a team, that goes for men and women, right? You have to put yourself in a position to have those opportunities. And I think the barriers for women are sometimes you don't get that opportunity to put yourself in a position to get a job. And I think all of us here are doing our part to position women better, to be better candidates and better positioned to get influential roles. And as an agent, which is, I said this earlier, it's crazy to say I'm a sports agent. 5-year-old Jenna would have been like, wow, you're the coolest person in the world. So that's cool. I think for me, it's like making sure, what Shannon just said before, which was so interesting, is like all the money that's going into women's sports. Well, let's make sure that's going back into women's pockets. And to do that, we need to make sure that we have data. And to get data, we need to work on that, right? We need to know what the market value is and how do we negotiate. I didn't step into agency because I thought I was going to be an agent. I stepped into agency because I saw that women needed better people to empower them and better people to advocate for them. So I was like, okay, well, I guess that's me now because I see that that's an opportunity. I'm seeing that it's not happening. I'm proud of Carl Smesko being the Atlanta Dream head coach. He's going to kill it. Would I have loved to see a woman do that? Yeah, I would have loved that, right? But he was the best person for the job, and he got the job. But in the future, we want to make sure that there is, that there's a great woman that can represent women and do that and get paid really, really well, because he's making a lot of money, and we want to see that money that's going into WBA going into women's pockets too. So, I just see that as part of my role in developing opportunities, positioning women, and then advocating for them when they get to the table to make sure they get their fair share.
And going back to what you said about stepping into the room, what would you say to young women or women in general? Like, what advice do you have to push them to go into the room to begin with?
I think about this all the time. You brought up something, Allie, that's really like your head and your heart. Like, have confidence in your head and your heart. You did all the work. You guys, and it's not just for women, but I think it's relevant for women to have the confidence to step into a room, own who you are, own your experiences, and speak to those experiences unapologetically and in a way that can relate to the folks. But I think it's a lot of confidence and a lot of preparation.
I agree. So this one goes for you, Jenna, and also Fielding. Can you provide us with some insight on what Priority Sports and Tipped Ventures do? How can agencies like these play a role in accelerating gender equity in the sports industry?
I'll start. I'll just give an example. Since starting Priority 31 days ago, we represent 4 NIL athletes. They are, one's from Ohio State, UNC. I'm sure I'm going to get a Georgia girl soon. I can only imagine. Someone from Arizona. And these are really high-profile athletes, like, top 50 in the country in their respective sports. And what we're doing right now is benchmarking NIL. And this is pretty complicated, but there's revenue share that's going to go to, money's going to be distributed differently. But what we're trying to do is understand the market and understand their value and help negotiate them getting the right amount of money. And same thing with coaches, is that women's coaches, making sure that we're benchmarking and understanding where their men's coaches in a league and in compensation, and making sure the women's is in the same realm, right? And that's the kind of work we do, is just provide data and advocate for them.
I think for me, for a long time, when you look at the women's sports game, and even though there's been all of that tremendous growth that Shannon talked about, for women's sports has long time been a copy-paste model from the men's game. And as a result, has often been something called pink it and shrink it. And what that means is they take a product that's made for a male, they shrink it, and they put some pinks and purples on it, and then they sell it to a woman. And we use that analogy kind of across the business of sports in general. And so for me, what my company does is we invest in entrepreneurs who have companies who are thinking about sports differently, who are thinking about innovation and thinking about what it actually means to be a women's sports league. What does it mean to be a women's sports athlete? What does it mean to be a fan of sports? There are almost 50% of the NFL fan base is women. Those women are not being marketed to correctly. They're not being spoken to correctly. They're not being represented in the right way. And so for me, a real-life example of this and the types of companies that we invest in is that we just invested in a company called Ida Sports. If you play soccer and you are a girl, or you know someone who is a girl who plays soccer, please look this company up. They are the first soccer cleat that is made for the woman's foot. So just let that sink in. We're in 2025. This company started in 2020. And it is the first soccer cleat that was actually designed for the woman's foot. Why is that important, Fielding? Well, let me tell you. Women's feet have a wider toe box. We have a higher arch. We have a number of different things. And so when you were a young girl playing sports, or you are now, most likely you're buying a shoe that was made for a man's foot and men's anatomy. And so what that can do is, from the lowest hanging fruit, that's a toenail falling off for a lot of these young athletes, at the highest hanging, that's an ACL tear. And so if we can get women and girls in the right products, if we can get them engaging in the right platforms, if we can make sports exciting for them in whatever way they want it to be, then I'm doing my job. And so for me, it is investing in those companies that is going, what if we just think about this differently and put women in the center? What does that look like? And so we are investing in a lot of things that will also affect the men's game as well. It is not just solely for women, but for us, that is our unique lens that we're taking when we think about new companies.
That's awesome, I love it. So Miss Abby Jackson, a 3-sport collegiate athlete, serves as Director for Sports Operations at Athletes Unlimited. Athletes Unlimited is revolutionizing professional sports with a player-centric model, creating leagues across many sports to elevate athletes and engage more fans. The organization has launched leagues in women's softball, volleyball, basketball, and lacrosse. So as a three-sport athlete in high school and in college, playing soccer, basketball, and lacrosse, how do you balance your time?
Well, no time for crimes, that's for sure. I was telling a couple kids about this at lunch. I am the type of person that needs pressure. I have to be on a deadline. Someone has to be breathing down, did you finish this thing? Like, is it due? And it was usually my mother. Like, your paper has to be done. But the pressure, sports served two purposes for me. Number one, it was an escape from schoolwork. It was escape from social drama, from all the things that sort of bother you, annoyances, you're mad at your mom or your dad for something, or your brother. It is a place where you can solely focus on yourself. It can be a really selfish place, and you can also solve some really great problems as you're sort of in your own head. But the pressure of deadlines and the sort of time crunch and the responsibilities. I went to a private high school, all girls in Boston, very similar vibe to this, high expectations for academics as well as athletics, all the best resources at your fingertips. And there is an insane amount of pressure. You don't really realize it when you're in it. But when you look back, you say, wow, every single thing that I did had a consequence. Whether it's your schoolwork or whether it's practice, it all has a consequence. So I need pressure. It's really great to be able to establish a schedule for yourself and a habit, right? In my job, and I'm sure you can talk to your parents, and I'm sure there's people here in this room who encounter people every day who simply do not have the discipline to be consistent with anything. And whether it's quality of work or showing up on time, and it might seem so trivial and minute, but it's not, right? The way that you can build relationships and the way that you grow up as part of a bunch of teams and a bunch of classes and interacting with your teachers and coaches shapes how you then go out and present yourself in the world. And that's not something that everybody gets. Like, coming to a school like this and sort of being in this environment, it seems like it's a little bit clockwork, but this looks wildly different from the experience of a lot of kids, right? So I would say my biggest piece of advice is enjoy yourself, but be present in the moment, right? When you're at practice, you also have to think about your math test. You also have to think about the paper that you have to write. And that just provides you with a skill, with a practice of a skill that will serve you on your day-to-day. I would also say communication is so critical with your parents, with your coaches, with your teammates. It does not serve anyone for you to sit in your room and wring your hands about all the things you have to do, right? Talk to your parents. Hey, Mom, I know we're supposed to go to this event on Friday, but I'm wondering if I can meet you there. I'm wondering if I can maybe skip it this time. It goes a long way, and I'm telling you, your parents will appreciate that communication because it shows that you're looking ahead. It shows that you're prepping. That goes for your teachers. That goes for your coaches. No coach on the earth is going to say, oh, you didn't turn in your paper? Well, too bad. You got to go to practice. They are 9 times out of 10, if you are really genuine in your conflict, they're going to help you. I had to go to coaches more than once to say, I am absolutely underwater. I need an extra hour. And every single time, it wasn't often, but every single time, there were 2 times I can think about, they said absolutely whatever you need. Because they want you to succeed, but not at the expense of your enjoyment and your mental health.
Absolutely. Time management is a big thing here at Westminster. This one is for you, Abby, but also for Allie. Your career paths exemplify the power of leadership, collaboration, and unique strength of all-girls environments in fostering confidence and resilience. Based on your experiences, what are the most effective strategies for empowering young women to see challenges as opportunities and to rise to them with confidence?
I'd say 9 times out of 10 is encouraging people to speak up. We at Athletes Unlimited we obviously have a core of full-time employees who have the experience, have been through the professional sports gamut. They come from everywhere from the coaching sector to NGOs to national team organizations. But then we also hire kids right out of school. And it's really easy in that environment when you're around professional athletes. I'll specifically highlight basketball because we do have a lot of WNBA players on our roster. People get a little uptight, right? And they don't, all of a sudden, if they don't want to tell, Sid Colson that it's not her job to fill up her water bottle. But you have to do that, right? You have to be vocal and you have to be clear about what your role is, right? And I think leadership, in a way, is delegation, right? If you are in a position, someone was talking earlier about how we need to create pathways and pipelines for women to have, the experience to get in the room, so to speak. And part of it is giving maybe somebody a role that's maybe technically above what they're supposed to do, and just see how they handle it. Communication, also super important, really emphasizing the importance of everybody's role, making it clear, and empowering them to use a little bit of critical thinking and think outside the box sometimes, and not just operate always within the lines. Maybe sometimes it's a disaster, but that's part of growing up and part of the experience building process.
Yeah, I think probably just two big points that have been on my mind recently on this topic. Abigail touched on it a little bit. I'm a firm believer that self-advocacy has more value than a high school diploma. And teaching our kids to speak up, not sit and twiddle their hands in their room and keep everything inside, but advocate for themselves, advocate for their needs, their wants, their concerns, and their desires is an essential tool for success. The second thing, and this has been a learning of mine over the last year that I've actually shared it with a group of girls a couple months ago, and this goes for young men, young women, adults. We have to remind ourselves daily that we can do hard things. When we don't do hard things, it's just like exercising and working out. You forget how to do them. It's like muscle memory. And when you forget how to do them, you get scared to do them, and you'll shy away. Doing hard things is so important, and we can all do them. I'll just give a small example that I experienced recently. I love sports. I like to play sports like I'm still 17 years old, and I'm not. There's one sport that I don't know how to play, and so over the last year, I decided that I'm gonna learn how to play golf. Golf is a super adult sport, and it's cool, and it's fancy, and it's fun, and I was gonna teach myself how to do it, so I watched a lot of it. And I watched a lot of it for a long time, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna go play, but I was scared to play. Because if anyone's played golf before, when you get up there and you swing a golf club and you miss the ball, it's embarrassing, really embarrassing. So I was scared to do it, and I was like, I'm gonna learn how to play golf. And so I invited 4 of my former head coaches at my old school: our football coach, our basketball coach, our baseball coach, and our sports information director. Those 4 guys were some of my closest friends, but they loved to make fun of me for good reasons, like good fun. So I'm like, I'm gonna go play 18 holes of golf in front of the 4 people that would make fun of me more than anyone else in my life, and if I can do that, I can learn how to play golf. And I did it, and I swung and missed many times, but they were also helpful and kind and taught me how to play along the way. So if I then took the leap of faith and go try to learn how to play golf, I wouldn't be able to play 18 holes today. So I summarize that to say, do hard things and do them often. It's important for us as humans to do that.
Going off that, how can girls and men and also, but how can you grow your confidence, and how can teachers and coaches help you to do that, to step into leadership roles?
Just building on what Abigail said too, communication, like keep your door open. It always needs to be an invitation to know that you're not in this on your own. And none of us would be sitting here today if we didn't have a village of people around us as we moved through life. And so I would say to the young men and women here, use your village, know who they are, reach out to them constantly, and just remember that you will be successful, but you have to lean on others to do it.
Throw one thing on the back of that. Relying on your village and relying on your family and really like utilizing the people around you that you trust is really important. When you're on a team, it is one of the last places that people other than your parents are going to care whether you live or die. And it sounds like dramatic, but if you're in a job and they're laying people off, everybody is like, well, I hope it's you and not me, right? On a team, that's not the way it goes. Your coach is there for you. If you are in jail, if you get transported to the hospital, 9 times out of 10, the students are calling their coaches. I was a coach for almost 20 years before I moved into the professional sports space. And students are calling me, Parents are calling me to help them have hard conversations with their kids, right? Things that you would never expect, but that's what happens. You have to be able to communicate with the people around you, but also you have to learn to speak up for yourself. You gotta, as my mom always said, you gotta be able to find your way out of a paper bag, right? Nobody is in any of the positions that we're in because we couldn't talk, we couldn't engage, we couldn't go out and meet and show people who we are and what we do and why we're good at what we do, right? As you get in, sitting in meetings with a lot of parents and kids, a lot of times mom is doing all the talking and the kid is a traffic cone in the office, right? I want to know who you are as a student athlete. I want to know who you are. What are you going to contribute to campus? What are you going to contribute to make yourself a citizen, right, in this environment? So, and that goes for job interviews, everything, right? And I will say this too, like, one of the things that women struggle with is thinking we are not qualified enough for things. And that's not something that men as a whole are as concerned about. But even on the men's side, like, do things that you think are a little bit out of your reach, right? Shoot for things that you think are a little bit, maybe you're underqualified, or maybe in your last job you didn't make as much money, right? And it could go for the little $16 an hour job you have now. Apply for assistant manager, right? See if you get it. Those things, that may sound small, but it really makes a difference, and it's going to help you develop a voice to be able to advocate for yourself.
Absolutely. So Ms. Keely Hartman, a Westminster alum, brings experience in sports and media to her role as Vice President of Streaming at Play On Sports, where she leads streaming operations and expands the NFHS Network brand. Before her current role, she held several positions at Play On, spearheading business development and marketing efforts with organizations like Max Preps. Prior to joining Play On, Keely worked as a football marketing coordinator at Octagon, where she planned NFL marketing campaigns. So Keely, you've had multiple different roles in sports marketing, from football marketing to growing the NFHS network. What is unique about sports marketing, and what is your favorite part about working in sports?
Well, I'll be the last one to say thank you to everybody here in this room for not only having all of us, but attending. I will give a special shout out to our lower school students. Thank you for being here. Thank you, teachers, for making that a priority. I went to pre-first here at Westminster, so believe it or not, someday you may be sitting here speaking to the next generation. So it's really a privilege to be here. And I see, after a few people are speaking out about your village, seeing many faces that were part of my village at Westminster and continue to be role models and confidants well into my adult years. So keep those relationships close. Some of my best friends are from lower school as well as into high school and being on those teams. But to get kind of more into the professional side of things, marketing sports is a really exciting and a really exciting industry to be in. It's a great position to be in. Sports are one of the greatest connection points that we have in society, not only within our local communities, but nationally and obviously internationally as well. So marketing sports and making sure that people are connected to the game is a great privilege. It's also a great challenge, especially live sports. So we are a broadcast company for high school sports. Many of you have watched on WCAT. So that platform, the NFHS Network, is one of my company's products. And live sports, once the game is over, it's over. No one really cares. Maybe they'll read a recap or watch some highlights. But how do we make sure people are aware of the game before and then during, while it's happening? It's also a really exciting opportunity to connect with different groups of individuals. We have parents who want to watch their student athletes. We have friends. We have college coaches who want to watch, high school events, maybe recruiting. We have communities, alumni, that want to stay connected with their school. So how do we reach those groups? There's obviously, social and kind of the more traditional marketing elements, but then really engaging with the community, finding the right people within each community to be your champions is a really big endeavor. We've obviously had a lot of great partnerships. I will also say that these kinds of partnerships professionally often happen as a result of personal connections that you may have made along the way. And so, don't burn those bridges. Make sure you are constantly networking and talking with people, meeting with people. You never know where you might end up. And I will say, you know, professionally, I've been able to interact with many people from various chapters of my life. So keep an open mind about where your career may take you down the road.
And going off of that, who were your biggest mentors at Westminster, and how did their teachings help you to break barriers and succeed in the sports industry?
Yeah, so many great coaches, as several of us have mentioned, you know, coaches and teachers can be some of the most formidable people in your lives. I will say one particular teacher of mine, Mr. Finswaite, who I know is still teaching English here. He was my 10th grade English teacher, and we had a big sophomore English project. So that was really one of the first times where we as students were able to pick what we wanted to learn about. So that was a pretty cool opportunity, you know, as a 15-year-old probably. We all got to pick our own topic, and there was a range of topics. And my topic was the evolution of ESPN. So as a 15-year-old, I got to live, eat, breathe, research the entire history of ESPN. I was a huge sports fan, but I really only knew sports from playing and watching. So learning about the business of sports during that entire year was really what kind of influenced me and opened my eyes into what was possible as a professional career. I knew I wasn't going to be going pro playing sports, so it was, how can I continue this passion into a professional career? And that was, you know, really one of the first times that I was exposed to, there's a whole business of sports. And as all of us up here, we're in the same umbrella industry, but we all do so many different things, which is really cool. And I hope you all, you know, kind of connect, or at least, you know, one piece of this resonates with you. But there's so much out there in the sports industry, and having bright, motivated people who want to make a difference is something that we really need. And I look forward to seeing where it takes you all as well.
I wish that was our project. We had a book report project. Yours seems a lot more fun. But Jenna, what advice would you give younger 5-year-old Jenna aspiring to break into a traditionally male-dominated industry?
I think trust yourself, and we've all touched on this before, we can do hard things. You can do things, and this is really applicable to the younger school. I think that's what that is, lower school and high school students and all the adults. Like, we're gonna face a lot of adversity throughout your life. We're gonna continue to throughout your professional career, no matter where you are in your life, and trusting yourself that the tools that helped you get through class and challenges on the court, or, you know, in the pool or wherever, that you are going to make good decisions. And if something goes bad, you can be resilient, that you don't have to feel great about everything, and you can still do it. You can fail, and you can still get up and keep going. I think that's what I would tell, that even on the worst days, you're gonna be okay, and lean on your tribe, lean on the people around you, but more than anything, like, believe in yourself. If you have high integrity, if you work really, really hard, it's gonna work out. So you could fail over and over and over again, and it's still gonna work out. And I think that's what I would tell younger Jenna, and that's what I tell everyone in this room, that it might not be the path you envisioned, but if you trust yourself, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, definitely. So we have lots of athletes in the room, and we have some committed students over. I'm looking over there. So, Doris, you went on to play D1 basketball at Texas Tech after high school. What was your experience transferring from high school to collegiate athletics, and do you have any advice for people that are making that step?
Yeah, so I was fortunate to be able to follow in my mother's footsteps and study and compete at Texas Tech, which is where she studied and competed. And I would tell you in this room, I stepped into that experience coming off of a great high school competitive experience. And I stepped into the Texas Tech experience thinking, we're going to cut down nets. We're going to celebrate Big 12 championships. And I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure one day the number 42, which is the number that my mother wore, that the number 42 is hanging in the rafters. So no one else gets to wear it after I finish the job and do what I thought I was capable of doing there. But 2 years into my student-athlete experience there, I was faced with a very difficult conversation with our team doctor regarding the severity of my injuries. And it was medical professionals' opinion that I consider a medical disqualification due to just the impact that my injuries and the procedures it had on my body and candidly on my mental health as well. So I stepped into that experience with bold goals and a lot of aspirations, and I do think I put the effort in to give myself a chance to have an opportunity to capitalize on some of those things. But fortune and luck and misfortune suggested otherwise. And so what I tell student athletes, those who are interested in a student athlete experience at the next level, sometimes we get wrapped up in just being an athlete. And that was very much just my identity. I was going to Texas Tech because my mother played there and I wanted to play there, and I was going to eat, sleep, breathe, live basketball. And the unfortunate, there's so many beautiful things about sports, and I wouldn't change my story at all. But the reality is sometimes those experiences come to an end before we're ready, we're prepared, and it is important for you right now to find an appreciation for the diverse aspects of your identity. Our leadership program that we do with our female student athletes is called More Than My Sport for a very good reason. We love sport, passionate as heck about sports. But the reality is we all have so much more to offer than just being an athlete. So if I could give anyone advice is, if that's your goal, you got to do the work. Someone asked, how do you build confidence? You do the work. You got to do the work to give yourself an opportunity to have experiences like that, but understand that there's so much more to who you are than just being an athlete, and really tap into all aspects of your identity, the layers of your identity, to make sure that when the time comes and that ball's no longer bouncing or you're no longer kicking a soccer ball, that you've explored other aspects of yourself and you have some other things to lean on to help you, embark on that next chapter of your life. So all of those words to say, diversify yourself and really tap into all aspects of your identity, because we're so much more than just athletes.
Can I jump in quickly on that, especially for this room and Westminster students? If you are going on to be a student athlete or just a student in college, let me tell you, you're going to be great. This school prepares you so incredibly well for what the world has to offer. And of course, you'll be nervous. I was nervous. I played lacrosse in college. It was I cried the entire week before I left. But it was amazing, and what I really come back to is it was amazing because I knew exactly what to do because Westminster taught me that. I knew how to go to class, I knew how to study, I knew how to time management. That's all things that you guys are doing here today. So regardless of male, female, if you're gonna just be a student in college or you're gonna be a student athlete, please, let me just tell you, you're going to be great, you are going to thrive, you have this entire community behind you to do that.
Talking about getting out into different things, not just your sports. Allie, this one's specifically for you, but if anyone wants to jump in, what are the most effective strategies to ensure female athletes excel in competition and also gain skills that will strengthen them beyond the field?
Sure. I think probably all of us have touched on it in a certain way, but the most recent answer that's relevant is you have to be willing to do the work. And not think of it as it's just going to be handed to you. And so just the notion that continuing to encourage girls that it's going to be hard, it's not going to be easy, and that's just part of it as well. I think the other thing too that I really appreciated hearing is when your parents and your family are investing in incredible institutions like this one, like GPS, there's a lot of resources that go into these places that will ensure that our students will be set up for success in their years after college. And so that's an okay thing to tell our girls, our students too, because I think that bolsters some confidence in them.
If I could just add, like, what really sets you up for success briefly is like being a good teammate. You learn when you go to college. Well, for me, I didn't play, I guess similarly, when we won the championship, I didn't even get in the game. But what I did know how to do is no matter how I felt inside, I was going to be the best teammate. I was going to celebrate like I won the game-winning shot. And that carries forever. Like, you being a good teammate, you being the person that can look to the left or right no matter what you wanted it to be. I want to be the teammate that's remembered professionally or, you know, on the court back in the day as like, wow, she supported me no matter what was going on. I was not up and down, or I tried really. That doesn't make it easy, right? You want to be the person that hits the game-winning shot. But the most valuable thing in the professional world is, hey, being a good teammate, being someone that you can rely on, whether or not it's a good or bad day for you.
Let's give our panelists and our moderator, Kate Lockerman, a round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
As we close up here today, I'd like to ask the students from Miss De Leon and Miss Montemayor's class to come up to the front really quickly. Can you all come up real quick? Can you guys stand in front of our panelists for me? Thank you very much. So these are members of a third grade class in the lower school, and their terrific teachers brought them here today. And we heard a lot from our panelists about a village, and we heard a lot from our panelists about a network. And when we think about all of you who are in the audience today as young people that are a part of our community, learning from these high-profile women in sport, I also want you as our young people on this campus to see the young ones that are looking up to you. And we're seeing what we can be from these 6 amazing women sitting up on this panel. And they're seeing what they can be watching you every day here. And there is power to that. And the way that you choose to interact with these kids and the way that you choose to lead means something. And it means something so much bigger than yourself. So when we talk about being good teammates, that's exactly what you all are. And we want to thank you for that today. And thank you guys for a great panel. Appreciate it. Thank you guys, you can head out. Those of you who are here, you are released for class. Thank you for being here.
You guys, thanks for coming, everybody.